Hello everyone, this is part 1 of What If Naruto Gave Hinata Another Shot. This story is made by the Gallant Toad Sage, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. It was a warm day. The sun blazed brightly overhead. The sky was a beautiful light blue, hardly a cloud in the sky as two men continued down their path. Trees bordered both sides of the trail as they walked to their home village. After a few minutes of walking, the travelers saw a huge wall with a large set of doors standing before them. The younger of the pair smiled as they entered the village. "Is that who I think it is?" one of the guards asked excitedly. "Yeah," the other answered, somewhat stunned. The two men continued walking into the village. "It's been 2.5 years since you were here," the older man said as a breeze blew his white hair slightly. "Yeah," the younger blonde man replied. Suddenly, the blonde man took a running start and ran up the nearest telephone pole. Below him, the older man chuckled. "Feeling a little nostalgic, eh?" The blonde man didn't answer. Standing atop the pole, he was rewarded by the sight of the home he missed so much. "I've missed this place," Naruto Uzumaki shouted. "Naruto, is that you?" a voice called from below. Naruto looked down and smiled at the pink-haired Konochi below. "Sakura-chan," he said brightly as he dropped down off the pole. "When'd you get back?" she asked, giving him a once-over. "Just now," he told her as he walked up to her. "Huh, did you get taller?" she asked, noticing that she had to tilt her head slightly to keep eye contact. Naruto also noticed the height difference. Taking his hand, he used it to compare their heights. He was a good few inches taller than her now, something that made him happy. He grinned as he rubbed the back of his head. "Yeah, I guess I did," he replied, goofy grin in place. Sakura noticed that her friend had changed a lot. Instead of his old orange and white jacket, he now wore an orange and black jacket that was tighter on him, clearly outlining his well-built frame. His forehead protector no longer had the short blue cloth. Instead, a long black cloak now held the piece of metal to his head. His hair was longer than she remembered. And he lost his baby fat, making his face look more mature and older. And, sadly, some of the laughter that was always in his eyes was diminished slightly. But his goofy grin was just as she remembered. Sakura suddenly felt rather fond of him. Naruto," she started, blushing somewhat, "do you think I've become more womanly?" she asked, blush even more apparent. Naruto lowered his hand and stepped back a little to get a better look. He noticed how she had changed. She no longer wore the long dress-like clothing she used to. Instead, she wore a tank top-like shirt, red as with the other clothing. She also wore shorts that clung to her thighs as they fell to just above the knees. He had to admit, she looked damn good. But, he'd gotten over her. A childhood crush. Nothing more than lust. He grinned as he struck his version of the nice guy pose, giving her a thumbs up. "I'll say, you've definitely changed, Sakura-chan." Sakura blushed as she hugged her friend. "You've changed too, Naruto." Jiraiya was proud of Naruto. The Moran knew the way to a woman's heart. Naruto, however, had noticed a gold band sitting on her left ring finger. "Sakura, what's that?" he asked, pointing at the ring as he disengaged himself from her embrace. "Oh, well," her blush brightened, "about a year after you left, Sasuke came back." "Really? Where is he?" he asked, happy that his friend had come to his senses. "He's on a mission and won't be back for 2 weeks." She informed him sadly, and, we've been seeing each other for over a year now. And last night, he proposed." Sakura smiled as she looked into Naruto's eyes. Naruto's eyes were his biggest weakness, if you knew what to look for. You could always tell how he felt just by looking into his cerulean-colored eyes. She saw a little hurt, but joy was the dominant feeling. "I'm happy for you. You have someone who'll love and protect you forever. And if the Barker does something stupid, I'll beat some sense into him," he replied smiling. Before she could say anything else, a bang followed by a puff of smoke preceded the appearance of a beautiful brown-haired girl standing in front of Naruto. Sakura was shocked while Jiraiya went into L mode, goggling at the girl with lust in his eyes. Naruto smiled as the girl disappeared in a puff of smoke, replaced by a brown-headed boy with a long blue scarf. What did ya think? Had the right amount of oomph, huh, Naruto? Konohamaru, I'm not a kid anymore. I've stopped using that jutsu. You should too, he said sternly. Sakura looked in admiration at Naruto. You've grown. Not just physically, but mentally too. I bet you have a bunch of new jutsu. She thought. Konohamaru looked shocked. Naruto, his rival and inventor of the S-jutsu, had told him not to use it anymore. Come on kid. Soon they'll probably be waiting for us. Let's get it over with. The white-haired L, Jiraiya, hey. Me. Shut up L Sage and deal with it before I K you off, started toward the Hokage's tower. Alright, I'll see you guys later. He waved bye to his friends, setting off to the tower, leaving Sakura and Konohamaru wondering the same thing. Is this the same Naruto? Naruto was feeling good as he walked down the main street of the Leaf Village. After having talked to Tsunade about his training, even revealing some of the L Sage's activities during the trip, she told him that he should get some rest, because he would be tested on his new skills Tomaro. Flashback. Naruto stood completely still as he listened to Tsunade. Well, now that we know what you did, she glared at a rather beat-up Sannin, I want to see how far your abilities have gone. However, you won't be alone during the test. I'm also testing Sakura. After the test, I will decide what to do with you. She paused as she looked at Naruto over folded hands. He did seem older to her. He'd stopped calling her granny and showed respect. He'd even stood still, not interrupting her as she spoke. What did you do to him, Jiraiya? He looks so much more mature. Now, as to the type of test. You and Sakura will be fighting a certain someone. I've left him free of missions the past few days so that he could be well rested. Your opponent will be. She was interrupted as two shinobi entered the room. Shikamaru, Nara and Temari. Lady Tsunade, we've gone over the list of exam applicants and Naruto. Naruto flashed Shikamaru a grin as he walked over to his friend. The two men clasped hands briefly as Temari looked in shock at the blonde ninja in front of her. Is this the runt? Naruto noticed Temari and gave Shikamaru a sly grin. So, you two dating? He teased. No, he said. Yes, she answered at the same time he did, causing both of them to blush. Oh, Naruto looked at Tsunade, pointing a finger at Shikamaru, so Shikamaru is my opponent. Opponent, I'm just here to deliver some papers. Anyway, you ginnig to enter. The Chunin exams. You're the only one from our class who's still a Chunin. Naruto stood still as shock played across his features, but it quickly disappeared. Wouldn't miss it for the world. He grinned. That may not be Nisakari if you pass the test. Tsunade said, now, your opponent is over there. She pointed out the window. Curious, Naruto walked over to the open window and looked out it. Yo. Naruto smiled as he turned his head, seeing Kakashi sitting on the roof, smiling at Naruto. Kakashi-sensei. Oh, that reminds me. Naruto jumped onto the roof and crouched near Kakashi, rummaging through the pouch on his waist. Ah, here it is, he declared, pulling an object out. Kakashi couldn't speak as he watched Naruto present him with the newest, still unreleased, Ika book. I thought you'd like it better than I did. I thought it was pretty boring. Kakashi accepted the book without a word and cracked open the cover and began to read. Arigato, Naruto. Naruto chuckled as he watched his sensei become absorbed with the book. But, just because you gave me this, doesn't mean I'll go easy on you. Kakashi declared as he turned the page. Ha, Naruto said. Then it hit him. He smiled as he turned to face Tsunade. So, Kakashi-sensei is my opponent. I can hardly wait. End flashback. Naruto grinned as he made his way to his favorite ramen stand. Naruto-chan. We heard you were back. Naruto smiled as he took his favorite seat as Chuki and his daughter Ayami greeted their best customer. What can I get you? First bowels free. Chuki smiled as the young man's eyes lit up. Alright, you're a lifesaver, Chuki-san. I haven't been able to find ramen as good as yours since I left. Chuki gave a hearty laugh. Of course. Nobody in the world can beat my ramen. He roared with laughter. Hinata was having an internal battle as she looked at Ichiraku ramen stand. She had watched as Naruto had entered the stand and had been rooted to the spot by the sight of her crush. I should go say hello. No. He's probably waiting for Sakura-chan and Sasuke-chan. What if he isn't? What if he's eating alone? I could keep him company. And what if you faint? He'll never talk to you again. Just as she decided to leave, a man with long white hair appeared behind her, watching as she continued to gaze longingly at the ramen stand. He smiled when he realized who was in the stand. Excuse me. A voice sounded behind Hinata, causing her to scream and jump in fright. Turning, she saw a L. That was the first word that popped into her mind as she started to back away from his L stare, tripping over a log. I mean no harm. I just want to talk. The L said, smiling, reaching for her hand to help her up. The young woman gave a terrified scream and passed out. Just as he was about to shake her awake, a conveniently placed foot lifted the old Sasunan, eyes bulging, mouth open in a scream of pain, up off the ground and crashing into the tree behind him. Dropping to his knees, the old Sannin covered his groin as the intense pain made him double over. Gasping for breath, unable to move, he looked up to see an enraged Naruto holding the young girl he'd approached. The young man was glaring at Jiraiya with such hate, that the old man would have flinched, if he could move. Sage, you'd better stay away from me for a few days. Then you'll explain. Consider that kick to your balls as punishment, he hissed, anger pulsating through his whole body. Jiraiya could only watch as Naruto carried the woman away, her dark blue hair draped over his arm. Naruto walked away from the old man, as angry as he could be. He tried to have his way with Hinata. He didn't know why, but he felt extremely protective of the girl in his arms. Looking down, he saw that she was snuggling close to his C, putting an arm around his N. What a wonderful scent, he thought as he caught the smell of lavender. He smiled down at Hinata, wondering why he never pursued her. After all, she was smart, funny, kind, and attractive. Because you feared rejection. So what if I did? If you'd have acted like a man, you wouldn't be wondering what could have been. And I wouldn't be scarred by your dreams about her. I'm sorry. I didn't know that you could see them. Naruto said sheepishly. Well, I can. And I can say that you are one L boy. What was with putting her against the wall about in your dream last night? Naruto chose not to answer and turned red as he remembered the dream in question. He felt a little aroused as he thought of it. The fact that he held the real deal in his arms didn't help. He could feel himself grow hard. Oh crap. If she wakes up seeing me like this, she'll think I'm AL and never speak to me. Okay, think of something else. Kakashi in his underwear. Even though both he and the fox were disgusted by the mental image, Naruto was glad that his manhood was relaxing. And not a moment too soon. Hinata felt herself being carried. She tried to remember what had happened. She remembered coming from the training grounds after a hard workout. That was when she had seen Naruto enter the ramen stand. She had been trying to decide whether to go sit with him or not, when an uncouth old man had appeared behind her. The L. Hinata kept her eyes closed as she prepared to strike. As if the move was practiced for this, she used Kaiten, throwing herself and the L on opposite direction. Hinata gracefully flew through the air and landed in the gentle fist-fighting stance, turning to face the man as he hit a tree close by. She was shed at what she saw. There was Naruto unconscious, against the tree. Hinata felt a surge of shame and regret, rushing to his side. Naruto-kun, are you alright? I'm so sorry, she said as she dropped to his side. She placed a hand on his head, blushed blazing as she realized she was touching his face. She couldn't help but notice how much he had changed. Naruto-kun, I'm so sorry. Naruto as he regained consciousness. Hinata felt relieved that he would be okay. Hinata, remind me never to make you mad. He flashed Hinata a smile that she returned, still blushing. She didn't faint when he grabbed her hand to help her stand up from her kneeling position. After all, she'd been woken up by a feeling of a long solid object across her lower back. Naruto and Sakura left the training field after passing the Hokage's test. All it really did was see how far the pair had increased their abilities in the last 2 years. Even though they were facing Kakashi, all he used were shadow clones. But, the pair knew that even though they were only clones and were only 1 out of 1,000 the strength of the original, they still possessed the Sharingan. After many battles, Relying on their new techniques, they blew through the clones with hardly any damage. After a few hours, Tsunade called the tester an end, congratulating the two, saying that they grew beyond all expectations. That of course was true for both of them. Before they left, Tsunade had one more thing to do. Naruto Uzumaki, she said in a commanding voice. Hi, Hokage-sama. 2 years ago, you left to improve yourself and your abilities. And you've more than done that. You've started to become the man I always knew you'd become. You've dealt with your share of troubles and overcame them. You've fought for the lives of your teammates and won several times. And you've laid your life on the line for this village and all its inhabitants. You've shown skills and abilities far beyond that of a genin. The Hokage appeared to almost pull a Chunin vest from thin air. As of today you are promoted to the rank of Chunin. I expect you in my office in 1 week for your first mission. Until then, little brother, get some rest. She smiled affectionately as she ruffled his hair. Little brother, he asked as he ran a hand through his hair, attempting to put some order to the chaos she had caused. It caused her to smile a little more. Well, you've kinda become a little brother to me, she said as if it didn't matter. Suddenly, she found the 15-year-old boy hugging her. Thank you, big sister. He broke away and ran to catch up to his team member. Tsunade stood in the middle of the training field, a tear running down her cheek as she watched him disappear into the trees. She hadn't noticed Kakashi standing beside her until he spoke up. Little brother, I had always thought of him as a nephew. He said matter-of-factly, still reading the book. Yeah, that kid's like family, almost like a grandson. A voice sounded out behind them, causing both to turn and watch as Jiraiya walked over to them. It fits, doesn't it? He started life without a family. Now, he has one. Tsunade said softly. Yeah, Kakashi agreed. Jiraiya nodded, smiling. A breeze blew through the training ground as the three ninja continued to stare at the tree line where their brother out of grandson had disappeared into. Sakura and Naruto had walked halfway down the street before Sakura had to head to her house. Well, Naruto, I'll see you tomorrow. Again congratulations, she said, flashing him a smile. Arigato, Sakura-chan, he said with a smile. Well, I'd better get going. Sasuke's probably waiting for me at home, she said without thinking. You guys are living together. He chuckled when Sakura started to apologize. Don't worry about it. Tell him hi for me. And, he said, suddenly remembering something, tell him to get Neji, Shikamaru, and Choji and to meet me where the truth comes out. Waving goodbye, he headed off toward the north gate. Sakura wondered what his rather cryptic statement meant, but decided to pass it along. Naruto sat in the dark warehouse by the north gate. Hearing the door open, he smiled as the sound of voices and footprints made their way toward him. All right, Barker, we're here. What do you want? Naruto smiled as Sasuke, Choji, Neji, and Shikamaru walked out behind a stake of crates. All four sat down on a crate like Naruto and watched their old friend, seeing how much he had changed. He also noticed how much his friends had changed. Sasuke was wearing a black version of the blue shirt he'd worn a few years ago. He'd replaced his shorts with a pair of dark pants. His hair was somewhat longer, but his face hadn't really changed. Neji had longer hair and wore a loose white-sleeved shirt that had 2 stripes at the shoulder and midsection with the opening going diagonally. He still wore his headband over the curse mark that had been branded onto him by the Hyuga main branch. Choji was the most changed. He no longer was a large boy. He now looked like the most well-built of everyone here, wearing a tight black t-shirt under his Chunin vest and pair of black pants. He didn't even look like the Choji he remembered. Shikamaru, though, looked just as Naruto had remembered, only older. I thought it was a good time for another session, team. He smiled as Sasuke smirked at him. It's been 2 years. We may be a little rusty, Sasuke said, still smirking. Humph. I doubt I'm rusty, Neji stated with confidence. Oh yeah, prove it, challenged a smiling Choji. This is a drag. But, as a genius, of course I'm not rusty, Shikamaru said lazily watching his friends. Sasuke smiled at Naruto. Alright, Barker, let's get this over with, he said. Naruto removed his jacket revealing his black muscle shirt as Shikamaru and Choji removed their vest. Both Sasuke and Neji removed their shirts revealing their white muscle shirts. Every one of them were well built. None of them heard the gasp of surprise as took off the jackets and shirts. They started opening crates and pulling out music equipment. After a few minutes, they had set up the drums and amps and got into position. Neji took the drums as Choji and Shikamaru grabbed bass guitars. Naruto and Sasuke both grabbed regular ones. Let's get wild, Naruto declared as he and Sasuke stepped into position. Unbeknownst to the boys, Sakura, Tenten, Ino, Temari, and Hinata had followed him to see why they were gathering here. As the boys tuned their instruments, Sakura, Ino, Tenten, and Hinata giggled softly as Temari said, "This should be interesting." After a few minutes of tuning, the 5 shinobi looked around, wanting to see who would go first. Naruto had returned to his crate, ready to start. All right, who should go first? How about Shikamaru? He turned to see Shikamaru scowling at him. Why me? He asked, somewhat annoyed. Because yours is catchy, pineapple head. Sasuke said, grinning as Naruto and Choji roared with laughter. Neji merely smiled. Fumming, Shikamaru prepared to play when Naruto stopped him. Hey, you know the rules. Naruto pointed at a bewildered Shikamaru. Rules, he repeated. And you call yourself a genius? Naruto said, smiling. The rule is that you have to say who the girl is that you wrote the song for and why. He informed him. The girls had suddenly stopped giggling and skirming and watched intently as the boys got ready to play. Shikamaru mumbled something about a drag before continuing. I wrote this song for Temari, to express my feelings and to tell her I'm waiting, he said, somewhat looked at Naruto who nodded. Starting off the song, Shikamaru and the guys began to play. Naruto and Sasuke kicked the guitar solo up a notch before the song returned to its normal speed. They finished the song, letting the last note fade out. We've still got Shikamaru, Naruto said, mischief in his voice. What? The other boy asked. Is she really that great? Thought you want, X-rated. The blonde boy asked, grinning like a maniac as the other 3 roared with laughter. Shikamaru turned red and decided not to answer. Best to not give them ammo to use against him later. Behind the crates, the 4-leaf Konochi turned to Temari, eyes begging for details. Temari merely smiled as she blushed. Alright, Sasuke, your turn, Naruto said, still smiling as the other boys' laughter eased down, though Shika was still red as a tomato. Sakura watched as Sasuke grinned at his friends as he stepped forward, wondering what his song would sound like. Sasuke stepped forward, hands at the ready. Alright, I wrote this for Sakura so I can tell her how much I care and how I feel when she's with me. Don't laugh at it either, he said threateningly. Wouldn't dream of it, Naruto said, blue eyes twinkling. Whatever, he said as he started to play, followed by the other boys. Quote, Sakura listened as the song's tempo sped up. She watched as the 5 boys, no, the 5 men play perfectly, almost as if they had been practicing for years. Quote, Sakura listened as her heart swelled in love as she listened to Sasuke's song. She felt tears start to well up in her eyes. The girls were mesmerized by the boys as the song slowed down, with only Sasuke playing. He was still singing his song. Suddenly, the tempo kicked back up to where it was, as all 5 shinobi played as one. Ending the song, Naruto applauded Sasuke as he gave Naruto a small smile. Finally finished writing it, I see. Naruto noted, thinking back to when the song had still been incomplete. Yeah, without some Barker hurrying me along, I was able to put more thought into it. Sakura was still silently crying as she thought of how much Sasuke truly cared. The other girls sighed as they looked over at an emotional Sakura. Sakura-chan, are you alright? Sakura nodded in response to Hinata's question. Before anyone else could say anything, Shikamaru's voice brought them back into reality. Choji, you ready? Shikamaru asked his best friend. Yeah, Choji roared, let's do this. I wrote this for Ino. I wanted her to know how I felt about being ignored. The song started with an upbeat tempo that sounded pleasant and was catchy. Ino listened as Choji began to sing. The tempo slowed down and sped up almost as quickly. Ino felt tears slide down her face as she listened to this man's emotion-turned song. They ended the song with a final note, all slightly sweaty from the heat of the warehouse. Behind the crates, Ino silently cried as she thought back on all the times she'd been mean and harsh to him. That changed now. I forgot how much fun this is, Naruto stated, wiping sweat from his forehead. His friends were likewise trying to cool off. Even Justa each grinned at one another as they waited to see who would go next, Neji or Naruto. Just as Naruto got ready to play, Neji stopped him. I'll go next, if you don't mind, Naruto. Naruto smiled at the other boy, nodding his head letting Neji know it was cool with him. I wrote this song for Tenten. She's been the only constant in my life. The one thing I can always count on. Tenten and the girls watched as Neji and the guy began to play an upbeat song that had a nice beat to the song. Probably because the drummer was the one who wrote it. As they watched, Neji began to sing. Tenten was happier than she had ever remembered. She adored the song. She adored the man that wrote it. She had never heard Neji ever express his emotions. As they ended the song, Neji spotted a pink spot 5 meters away behind some crates. Activating his Byakugan, he smiled as he saw the 5 Konochi hiding behind the crate, clearly listening to the boys as they played. Neji decided not to say anything. Naruto, your turn to sing that song you wrote for my cousin. Neji said louder than he normally would. Hinata was extremely red after heard Neji's statement. Naruto wrote a song, for me. She thought shocked. Sakura and the other girls were grinning at Hinata as she turned even redder. Neji, don't get ahead of me, damn it. He shouted, checks rather pink. Whatever. Just start already. Sasuke smirked. Naruto glared at him, but complied. I wrote this song for Hinata to let her know that I truly and deeply care about her. And I feel like I can't live if she isn't near me. Hinata heard this and felt joy shot through her every being as the other grills beamed at a still red. They peeked over the crates to watch the final song being played. Naruto closed his eyes as he began to play the song that he'd wrote from the heart. The beat was slow and pleasant. The other guys joined in playing just in the same slow perfect tempo. Hinata listened to the song as her crush was singing. The other girls couldn't believe how deep Naruto was. The song was the most romantic song they'd ever heard. Hinata felt her breath catch in her sea as she listened. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Quote, Sakura and the others couldn't help but realize how romantic the loud-mouthed blonde could be. Hinata hadn't moved. Her eyes began to fill with tears at the thought that he had loved her all this time. Quote, Naruto's voice carried the tune through the whole warehouse. Who knew that any of them could sing this perfect? Quote, Hinata wanted to shout to him that she did love him and that she did forgive him, but she couldn't get her mouth to form words. She truly wanted nothing more than to hold on to him. Quote, the song ended with the final note fading smiled as he and his friends congratulated themselves on their improvements with their singing, instrumental prowess, and their songwriting. Naruto was laughing with Choji as he laid his instrument down, only to have Neji nearly give him a heart attack. Alright, Sakura, Ino, Temari, Tenten, Hinata. You can stop hiding. I know you're in here. Hinata was near tears now. She never heard anything so beautiful. And Naruto had written it for her. Did he really mean it? She wondered. Before she could fully take in what had happened, they'd been found out. Alright, Sakura, Ino, Temari, Tenten, Hinata. You can stop hiding. I know you're in here. All 5 girls blushed as they stood up, smiling sheepishly. We're sorry to have eavesdropped on you guys. Sakura said, still blushing. Right, girls. Hi. Ino and Tenten said, blushing. Temari merely smiled as she nodded her head in agreement. Hinata didn't say anything. She just stared at Naruto with shock and confusion as he blushed in embarrassment. After all, she was basically royalty while he was a nobody. That was why he'd never pursued her. Because even if she liked him, which he doubted, her family might not like it and keep them apart, and the villagers might become cruel towards her. He didn't ask her out because he didn't want her hurt. He lived in pain while she was happy. He didn't care about himself, just as long as she remained unhurt, he could bear it. Looking back to where the girls were, he was shocked to see Hinata standing directly in front of him, less than a foot away, her lavender eyes looking into his own cerulean eyes. He wasn't the only one in an awkward predicament. Temari was in Shikamaru's arms, eyes closed while he looked like he'd been clubbed over the head. Choji was in the middle of AK and didn't show much emotion except shock. Sasuke had his arms around Sakura's waist as she leaned back onto his sea, watching their friends. Neji smiled smugly as he held Tenten close. Since when did you guys have a band? Sakura asked as Choji and Ino broke apart for air. And, of course, Sasuke was the first one to answer. About 6 months. We had started a few months before Naruto and myself went on a training mission. Anyway, we were hanging out in here and came across these instruments. Goofing off, we realized that we sounded pretty good. Sasuke smiled as he continued, then we started writing songs for the people we cared the most about. We came in here and played almost every day. As Sakura and Sasuke continued to talk, Naruto and Hinata were still looking at one another. Naruto was shocked to see a little hurt in her eyes. What's wrong, Hinata-chan? He asked, worried that he had hurt her. Hinata smiled as her lavender eyes locked with his. All this time, you've loved me? She asked, moving closer. Everyone stopped and watched, smiling. It's about damn time, they all thought. Naruto put his hand up and scratched his head, grinning like the love-struck idiot he was. Ever since the Chunin exams. I didn't say anything because I didn't think you liked me. He said sheepishly, staring at his feet. He was surprised when a pair of smooth, soft hands cupped his face and lifted it up until he was eye to eye with Hinata. She was moving closer to him, still speaking, her sweet breath touching his face. Naruto, you shouldn't have been afraid. He noticed that her stutter was gone. She kept moving closer, pressing her C against his. After all, I've loved you since the academy, she said softly before pressing her L gently upon his. As they made contact, fireworks exploded inside Naruto's head as he felt warmth, joy, and love flow through him. He dropped his hand from his head and wrapped his arms around Hinata, lifting her off her feet as he pressed the K even harder. After several seconds, they broke apart to the sounds of wolf whistles and giggles. Naruto smiled at Hinata as she looked lovingly at him with her lavender eyes, his arms still around her waist. A sudden shout echoed from each of their friends. About damn time. Hinata was smiling as she and the girls sat gossiping happily at an outdoor restaurant. She was listening to Sakura talk about her rather intimate night with Sasuke. And then he stopped because he noticed I was worn out. She blushed as she continued. That boy's stamina is impressive. Ino and Tenten sighed as they watched Sakura giggle. Hinata smiled as she took in what her friend had said. She didn't even notice the waiter looking her over. The other three did. They watched as the young waiter, maybe 2 years older than them, walked over giving her a flirtatious smile, that Hinata ignored. Can I get you anything else? He asked the beautiful young Hyuga. No thank you, she said, not even glancing at the young waiter. The young man walked away, looking rather hurt by her curt reply. Sakura, Tenten, and Ino looked at Hinata, smiling as she took a sip of her water. I can't believe you. Sakura smirked. What? She asked, genuinely confused by her friend's statement. That waiter was totally checking you out. Really? Hinata asked, somewhat surprised. Tenten and Ino snickered as Hinata glanced over at the older boy before turning back to Sakura and the others. You're so head over heels for Naruto that you didn't even notice a cute older guy. Hinata felt her face grow red as all 4 girls heard familiar voices, laughing and yelling, approaching their table. As if on cue, Naruto, Sasuke, Neji, and Choji came around the corner. Catching sight of the girls, the 4 young men made their way over to the table. Neji walked straight over to Tenten as she stood up long enough to let Neji sit down before she sat on his laps, lightly K him. Sakura and Ino had both adopted similar postures, but without K their boyfriends. Naruto made his way over to Hinata as she blushed looking down at her feet. Using a single finger, Naruto lifted her chin until her lovely pearl eyes were staring directly at his. Leaning down, Naruto gently K Hinata. A sudden loud crash caused the couple to break apart and look over to the swearing waiter. Naruto raised his eyebrows in concern. You alright? Need some help? He asked. The older boy glared at Naruto, jealousy etched across his face. No, he snapped, go back to K your friend. Naruto became enraged and gave the older boy a glare of death. Something wrong with K my girlfriend, prick. He shot back. The waiter mumbled as he cleaned up the dropped tray and glsses. Chancing a final glare at the blonde boy, the waiter retreated back behind the counter. Naruto muttered as he turned back to face Hinata. She was smiling at him. Girlfriend? She asked, smiling as her cheeks went a little pink. All their friends smiled at the pair, watching what would happen next. Only if you wanna be. I understand if you wanna take it slow and see how things develop. He stuttered. He had said it without even thinking, she had said she loved him. And he sure as hell loved her. But what if he was rushing it? He could end up hurting her in the end. Not a pleasant prospect. He looked down at his feet, feeling foolish. Hinata smiled as she heard him start to stutter. She thought he was being sweet, trying to rectify his overzealous statement. Naruto, it's my job to stutter, she said softly, causing him to make eye contact. In that moment, she pulled his face to her, and pressed her L against his. She put her arms around his N as he put his around her waist. They stayed that way for several seconds. As their friends beamed at the news they broke apart, Hinata was smiling with an intense blush. She had put her answer in that K. It was up to a dazed Naruto to figure it out. After a few seconds, he grinned at her, placing her right hand in his and placing his forehead against hers, still looking into the eyes that he'd fallen for. I'll take that as a yes, he said smiling, before getting himself another small K. 2 days had passed since Naruto and Hinata became an item. Of course, only their friends knew, as did a select few villages. And this shocked Naruto. Some of the villages that, having seen Naruto and Hinata K and were asked not to tell anyone, were some of the ones who had hated him as a kid. But that didn't matter. All he knew was that he only cared about the woman he had right beside him as they lay on the ground, watching the clouds, arm in arm. Naruto had yet to take her out on a true date. Mainly because Hinata was afraid that someone, mainly Kiba or her family, would see it and ruin what they had. Hinata had felt bad that she couldn't tell Kiba, but she knew that he liked her and she didn't feel that way about him. She only had those feelings for the blonde who had her in his arms. And she didn't dare tell her father. She knew he had a deep disgust for Naruto. If he knew, she'd probably be beaten and locked in her room until she's. No, she corrected herself, he had changed for the better. But, even though she wouldn't get beat, he'd still probably keep her away from him. They did their best to hide their relationship, which was hard on both because they wanted the whole village to know. Of course they didn't always have the control to not hold hands sometimes, or in the times they'd been found out, in dark alleyways. And when they got together, they always said they had training. Naruto sighed as he realized that they had to head back to the village. Even though he didn't want to go, he knew that if they stayed, someone would find them. So, he gave Hinata a Samuel K on her cheek and smiled as she faced him, a small smile on her L, hair dark blue hair moving slightly from the gentle breeze. It was about 5 in the afternoon. As much as I like lying here with you, Hina-chan, we have to head back. He said, regretting the decision to hide their love. I guess it can't be helped. I wish we could have some more time. She said, also regretting the decision. Together, the two love-struck shinobi stood and began their walk back to the village. As they approached the north gates, they released each other's hands regrettably and walked side by side into the village. Naruto walked Hinata to the Hyuga compound and was shocked and afraid to see her father, Hiashi Hyuga, standing at the front gate. Hinata noticed it too and she gave a small leap of fright, afraid that he had found out. Together they approached the smiling Hyuga head. What shocked Naruto was that it was a warm and welcoming smile with a knowing gaze. Hiashi continued to smile at the pair as they made their way to the gate. When they arrived he looked at them and smiled even more as he noticed the blush they both had. Hinata, Naruto, I would like to see you two inside for a moment, he said, still smiling his warm smile at them. Naruto glanced at Hinata who, even though was surprised by her father's current actions, nodded her head, telling him to go ahead. Hiashi almost laughed as he watched the silent conversation. He stepped over to the two, grinning. You don't have to hide your relationship from me. I already know. Now, please let us get inside so that we may speak in private. He said quietly so that only they heard. He really did laugh as he watched Naruto turn red faster than Hinata did. He led the pair into the house. He noted that Naruto did indeed have manners as he took off his shoes and placed them by the door. After they entered the house, the three walked to Hiashi's private office. He held the door open so that the two young shinobi could enter ahead of him. He closed the door and sat down behind the desk in his brightly lit office. He folded his hands on his desk and looked at the two in front of him. As I stated outside, I know that you two have been seeing each other. Calm down, I'm not going to tell you not to see each other anymore, he said as he saw panic fill both their faces as they both grabbed the other's hand. Do you think me a heartless father, ready to destroy what my eldest daughter has? Yes, Naruto and Hinata thought mentally. No. In fact, I'm happy to know that Hinata has found someone she felt was worthy of her heart. I have also noticed a change in her. She is more confident and sure of herself. For that, I thank you, Naruto-san. Arigato. He nodded his head in thanks at Naruto. Hinata and Naruto sat in shock. Her father was okay with them being together. Had hell frozen over. From what Naruto had heard, he was indeed a heartless bastard that beat his children. Why the sudden change of heart? However, I am hurt that you two didn't trust me enough to tell me. You both thought the worst, he said, and he did look genuinely hurt by it. I'm sorry, Hiashi-sama. It was me that convinced Hinata to keep our relationship a secret. I didn't want to see her hurt. Naruto bowed his head at Hiashi as he gave his daughter a small smile, his heart swelling with admiration on the boy who had already changed two people in the clan, making them better and stronger people. Naruto-kun, that's not true. I talked you out of telling him. Hinata said, still aware that Hiashi was watching them. Naruto turned and faced Hinata, smiling at her as she tried to take the blame for both of their actions. As much as I enjoy this, I do have some ground rules for you too. Even though I approve, I still expect you to follow these rules to the letter. Hiashi said, suddenly stern. Naruto and Hinata looked at Hiashi, listening intently. First, when you have a date, I want to know where you're going, how long you'll be there, and what time you'll be home. He said, letting his words sink in. Hi. They both responded. Second, no more sneaking around. If you two truly love each other, let the whole village know. Don't let people's opinions cloud your feelings. Hi. And third, he couldn't resist, no s until marriage. He said seriously, even though he knew that they wouldn't do anything. Ha, what the hell? Naruto blurted out, face redder than a tomato, we haven't moved past K yet. Naruto-kun. Don't shout. Hinata yelled, face as red as his. Both looked in fear as Hiashi burst into laughter at both teens' actions at the simple three-letter word. It took several seconds for him to stop, but he still smiled at the blushing couple. Sorry, I just had to say that, even though I knew you didn't plan on it anyway. Now, Hinata, you're free from training for the rest of the day. He turned to Naturo, I expect her home no later than 1 am. If she's not, I'll send Neji to get her. I won't tell him to KU, but you will be in pain if he comes for her. He warned, watching. He smiled as he saw that Naruto had no intentions whatsoever of disobeying him. He somehow knew that he didn't have to threaten him with Neji. Naruto was, according to what he had heard, a kind and caring young man that always did what he was told and respected others' wishes. He knew he could trust him with his daughter. Hi, Hiashi-sama, Naruto said as he stood up, ready to leave. The large house made him uncomfortable. You may go. Remember what I said, he told him as he pulled out some paper and began going through it. He was pleasantly surprised when Hinata came over and hugged him. Arigato, Otu-san, she said as a tear tickled down her cheek. She broke away from him as her and Naruto disappeared from view. He smiled. Hinata and Naruto left the Hyuga compound, both smiling and blushing at each other, hardly able to keep their eyes from making contact. When they stepped onto the road that led away from the compound, Naruto pulled Hinata close and kissed her passionately. This of course got many curious looks and many smiles from passerby as they watched the young couple. Some stopped to congratulate them as the couple stood, embracing one another closely, smiling at each other, no blush present. Just as Naruto was about to suggest that they go to a move private location, an Anbu Black Op appeared beside them, causing them to break the embrace, though they still held hands. The dog-masked Anbu didn't waste any time. Naruto Uzumaki. Hinata Hyuga. The fifth Hokage requests that you see her immediately. The Anbu said, not even caring that he had destroyed a rather romantic moment. But, both shinobi nodded in acknowledgement as the Anbu disappeared in a puff of smoke. So much for a date tonight. Let's go see what the Hokage wants. Naruto said, smiling at Hinata as she gave him a dazzling smile. Making a few quick hand signs, Naruto teleported himself and Hinata to the Hokage Tower, just outside her office. Naruto knocked once, before a familiar voice sounded from behind the closed door. Come. Opening the door, Naruto smiled as he saw that Neji, Sasuke, Shikamaru, and Choji standing in the room. The four guys gave Naruto and Hinata a small friendly smile as the couple entered. Hey big sister, what's wrong? Naruto asked as he entered the room, noting that Tsunade looked down about something. She smiled at Naruto as he entered. She noticed that he and Hinata were holding hands, which confirmed for her that they were indeed seeing each other. She wondered how Hiashi would take it. Calm down, little brother. I just wanted to inform you guys that I have a mission of great importance for you 5 boys. Tsunade said as the other 4 plus Hinata grinned at Naruto. Apparently though that he was the Hokage's little brother amused them greatly. What is the mission? A. Escort. Recon. Naruto asked as he sat down. A split second later, Hinata sat on his lap, her head resting on his shoulder, as she listened to what the Hokage had to say. Tsunade smiled at the sight. She was happy that Naruto now had a woman in his life. Hopefully, she'll get him to mature even more. None of those, she said as the boys all looked at her. I have noticed as of late, that morale in the village still hasn't returned to what it was since the death of the third. Naruto felt sad at the mention of the old man. The third had been like an uncle to him. The man had always been there for him when Naruto needed it the most. Tsunade's voice brought him back. I have been trying to find a way for the village to know that we are stronger. I believe I have found that answer. She smiled at the confused look on the boys' faces. Priceless, she though. I want you 5 to give her a concert for the village. From what I've heard, both from first-hand knowledge to second-hand information from Sakura, you guys sound pretty good. She couldn't have pictured this moment any better than it was. All 5 boys had jumped in shock at being found out. Well, except Naruto, seeing as he had Hinata on his lap. All he could do was look like he'd been told he'd be a father. A completely blank and shocked expression. She let them sit in the silence that followed her statement. After a minute, she decided that enough was enough. I expect you to carry out this assignment like you would any other. You have until Sunday by noon to get ready. This is a B-ranked mission due to the importance of morale. Good luck, gentlemen. You may go. Except, Naruto and Hinata, the other 4 muttered goodbyes and headed out of the office, looking like they'd been told that their favorite pet was S. After the door closed, Tsunade looked at the couple sitting before her. Before she could say anything, the door opened and in walked Jiraiya, Kakashi, Iruka, Kurenai, and Shizune. All 5 stopped in their tracks when they saw Naruto and Hinata. Then it started. Kakashi gave Naruto a conrates as Jiraiya made a few comments as Iruka smiled at the young man he'd come to view as a son. Shizune and Kurenai swooped down on Hinata, asking rather personal stuff, like if they'd had S yet. Both teens turned red and just sat in the position they were before the interrogation had started. Tsunade was amused at the scene before, but decided to top it before someone got hurt. As in Jiraiya. That's enough. I called you 6 here because I needed some help with the talk. Everyone in the room, except the L, went red as they looked at one another. Now, Kakashi, Iruka, and Jiraiya, you'll take Naruto. She gestured at the young blonde in front of her. Myself, Kurenai, and Shizune will take Hinata. Now, she added, noticing the rather disgruntled looks on each of the men's faces, again, except the L. Kakashi was the first to speak up. Why do I have to help with the talk? Iruka can handle it by himself. He's like the boy's father. Kakashi said, smiling at a red Iruka. Well, you like an uncle to him. After all, you taught him plenty of things to women. Iruka shot back. Kakashi looked stunned, but quickly recovered. Don't get me confused with the L grandfather. He said, pointing at Jiraiya. Hey, he said, somewhat annoyed. Why the L stuff? All of you will talk to him. Mainly because you're the closest thing to a family he has. Tsunade shouted. All 3 looked scared out of their minds as Tsunade cracked her knuckles, all parties forgetting that the 2 young lovebirds were still in the room. After a few sins, all 3 agreed and grabbed a kicking and screaming Naruto from the room. No, please. They could hear the shout echoing from outside as the 3 men dragged the young man to his apartment. Now Hinata. Let's start. All 3 women sat down and stared at her. This is going to be a long night, she thought, blushing. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.